Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Great. Hey everybody, welcome to Lesbians are Taking Over the World. This is episode 3 of the podcast. We have 2 guest speakers today, and they are friends of mine. They've been in a relationship for 7 months. So I'll let them introduce themselves to you.
Okay, my name is Terry. I'm from Zimbabwe. I'm Zimbabwean. But for the until March, for the whole 1 year, 6 months, I was in the UK, where I was reading for my master's in sustainable agriculture and food security at Newcastle University. But now I've returned home after completion of my degree program. But obviously, my traveling to UK for education purposes came with its own, rewards, because I made friends while I was there, and Gemma is one of the good friends that I met and that I'm still in contact with from the time that I was in Newcastle. And obviously, I met Sarah. The woman that I've been dating for about 7 months now, that I've been in a relationship with for 7 months now. So it's been a really good experience so far.
And how old are you, Terry?
I'm 37.
Yeah, same
I
age as
turned
me.
37 in March. Yeah, with the same age.
And Sarah?
I am 46, nearly 47. Gosh, 50 ever approaching. I am a nurse. Well, I have been a nurse for over 20 years. I've spent half my career in the community. I am also what you call a later in life. I came out only 3 years ago. And that's probably another chat for you another time, because it's quite an interesting journey that I've been on. But I came out late. I met Terry through the meetup. It was just by coincidence. I asked if somebody wanted to go to the cinema, and she said she'd come. And sometimes there would be several of us would go, and it just happened that just the 2 of us turned up. And
just so the listeners know, there's a website and an app called Meetup, and it's where all different groups arrange meetups. It can be anything from, religious groups to book readers, LGBT, and stuff. So you 2 met on it was a local Newcastle lesbian.
It was just a one.
Group,
it was a
right?
one I joined not long after I first came out, as a way to kind of explore, I suppose, the community and get to know more people who were more like me, I suppose, so I could feel, I don't know.
Yeah. No, I get what you mean. I want to talk about a little bit about Meetup, because it's really important. I found that when I first became disabled, I don't know if the listeners know I'm disabled, but I had the same. That's why I joined Meetup as well, was because I wanted a way of meeting other lesbians and LGBT people, but like in a way where you're not getting drunk in a pub all the time. And I find pubs anyway quite stressful for me anyway now with my illness, because the loud sounds hurt me and stuff like that. And I wanted to like meet other lesbians and meet other gay people, but like where we'd go and do something like, we'd go for a hike, or in my case I take my mobility scooter, or we'd go to the cinema, or we'd go to a museum together. So yeah, and Meetup's fantastic. Like I remember when I first came out years ago, I joined Meetup and I met up with the same reasons as you, Sarah. I didn't have any lesbian friends, and even though I'd come out, like I felt really isolated, and I wanted to like make friends so I could talk about what it's like to be a gay woman, because I didn't have any friends. And I joined Meetup. This was years ago. I was like 17. I think I was really young. And no, I was a little bit older. That's right. I came out when I was 16, 17. But I didn't really have any lesbian friends. So when I was a little bit older, that was it. I think I was about 21 or something. I joined Meetup, and I met up with 20 of us met up somewhere, I forget where now. Yeah, and I made a lot of friends from that, and it was just nice to just talk to other gay women, really, and just like about stuff that only other gay women are going to understand, you know. So yeah, I really recommend that website and that app. If there's other groups as well. There's groups on Facebook. I run a group on Facebook called Liverpool Lesbians Queer Women Meetup, and we do regular meetups as well, all around Northwest. So there's some groups on Facebook, but yeah, meetup's a pretty cool way to.
Yeah, it is.
I've joined several things because I'd obviously been in a heteronormative, or whatever you would call it, world.
Yeah.
And both being out as well. I also think getting older, you do give less of a shit, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely.
Barely half the century, my God. So it's like I'm at the point now where, as long as my family are comfortable, you know.
Yeah.
But if they weren't, then they would have lost me anyway. But the person who was most important to me about their reaction was my son, and obviously he's of a different generation who actually don't give a shit and are just happy as long as you're happy.
So that's great. So your family and your son, they accepted it quite well then.
My parents have been actually surprised me quite a lot about my their reaction. My mum turned around and said she'd always known I was gay, which would have helped when I was a teenager.
Yeah. But, I had the exact same reaction. I was like, why didn't you tell me then?
But I don't believe in regret. I don't believe in worrying about the past or dwelling on.
You've got a beautiful son out of it, you know, so it's not like
but you can't do anything about the past, really. You can only go forward, being positive and living your life is how you can going forward, because if you dwell too much on the past, it just ends up messing with your head.
But it's funny, I've got quite a lot of friends and ex-girlfriends actually who were in a male relation, you know, they were in a straight relationship and they have children out of it, and they wouldn't regret it for a second. I mean, obviously, yes, they kind of feel a bit strange that they kind of knew they were a lesbian years and years ago, but just couldn't admit it to themselves. But they don't, like, obviously from their point of view, my point of view, it's like, you know, here they are, they've got these beautiful children and that they love dearly, and so for them, how could you regret that? You can't regret that, you know. And they did love their husband, they did love the men that they were with, even though they prefer, you know, in the back of their mind they probably did prefer women, but they still did love those men, you know.
Well, I'm still not divorced, not through choice. It's because I can't afford it. I'm saving up to get divorced because I do want to be divorced and be my own person again. Yeah. But it's quite difficult in this country to get divorced. It's not the easiest thing. I don't think people grasp that in the UK
as well.
Very expensive, and it's not. It's up to them to agree it. You can apply, but they can actually reject it. So it's actually better if the man applies for it. I'm very lucky in the fact that I call him my ex-husband, is we are actually very good friends, and he's probably been my biggest supporter coming out. So
wow, that's amazing. That's unusual, actually.
Very amicable, and it means we can parent our son well
and openly, which is quite unusual. Like most friends that I've got, when they came out their previous relationship, if it was a man, they didn't take it too well, you know.
Oh, he's been cool, and he is very. I mean, we still have our moments because we've always fought, and we do fight about probably irrelevant things. But in relation to my sexuality and coming out, he has been really, really. I can't think of the word. Just very, very supportive and very grown up. Hasn't turned into like. We've dealt with it, and it's better for our son because it means he's getting a very a good. He's seen it in a positive way as well, because you know that's what's important at the end of the day with all of this is the child. So that's my.
So did your son? You came out to your son then, did you? You explained.
Yeah, he came out came out to my son about a week after I came out to my husband.
And
But we
and you think you say he took it really well because you think of it's his generation.
yeah, he's coming up 14, so he was about what 3 years ago. So, God, I'm not very good at maths. He
11,
was
maybe around 11.
born on 11. He was a couple of months off his 11th birthday, and he'd said when we first said we were going to be separating that he just wanted us to be friends. He was fine as long as we were friends. And then when I told him about me, he just went, "Okay, so you like girls, fair enough," and that was it.
Wow, that's amazing. Oh yeah, I'm kind of jealous because when I was, I don't know about, well, you definitely, Sarah, you'll know. Well, I know Teresa's obviously from a completely different culture, so be completely different. But when I was growing up in the 90s, it's when I was at school in the 90s, you just couldn't. I mean, Jesus Christ, like the word lesbian was almost like as bad as a Nazi. It was considered vile, disgusting, and I remember
Right.
I got caught kissing a few girls, and then my nickname then throughout school was the lesbian, but not in a positive way,
Wow.
and it very much I had to keep in the closet, and even though I didn't know myself that I denied to myself that I was gay because of the reaction that I was getting at school and from all my friends and my parents actually, was that lesbian was like this disgusting, really sick, warped. It was almost like you've got to be you're warped or you're a freak. If you're a lesbian.
Yeah.
But it's just funny now when I speak to kids. I've got quite a lot of friends
Yeah.
that have children and that, and when they go to school now, it's when I speak to teenagers if I speak to a young person from the age of say 11 to 14, I don't talk about it. I don't bring it up to them. I let them talk about it to me because I feel like that's up to the parent. I don't want to throw it in their faces, but they tell me like, oh, so and so is bisexual, so and so is a trans girl, and they're so okay with it. It's for teenagers now in Liverpool who are going to school, not all schools, but in a lot of the schools that I know anyway. I noticed that the teenagers, they're completely accepting of gay, bisexual, queer, trans. To them it's just normal. And in a way, I'm just so jealous because I'm like, God, I wish it was like that in the 90s when I was growing up.
Even worse because I grew up with AIDS. So in the
Oh
80s,
God, yeah, Jesus.
I didn't come out. I am a true Geordie. Yes,
Oh.
I'm trying to talk more. Terry's probably laughing because I'm probably doing me.
Are you toning down the Geordie?
Just a little bit.
Yeah, she's sounding
As you can hear from my voice, I used to actually have a really thick Leeds accent, believe it or not, and I used to sound like Mel B. Honestly, like just like Mel B. But then when I lived in, then I kind of picked up a bit of a Scouse twang. So then it kind of sounded like halfway between Yorkshire and Scouse. And it was as strong as it was stronger than yours, Sarah, honestly. But then when I moved to London and South Africa, nobody could understand a word I was saying, like at all. I couldn't even get a pint of milk. Like it got to the point where I was going to the local shop and they couldn't. I kept trying to ask for milk, and they couldn't understand me. So I started going moo moo and doing like milking a cow's udders, like to try and explain. And it got to the point where I thought I am going to have to change my accent. Like I've got no choice here because the only accent they understand is a kind of generic posh British accent, which is what I came back with. But obviously now my family and friends up north, they rip the piss out of me all the time because I sound like fucking Mary Poppins, But that's why I don't sound northern now, and I have this accent is because Africa, like no one could understand what I was saying.
You still sound northern to me, but not northern like me. But you do still sound northern.
Yeah, I think I do. I think I do a little, like it's there, but I think my accent's quite generic. It's almost like generic, almost.
17 years, so because that's where I moved back up the northeast in 2008. So it's my accent's getting stronger every year. I'm back here.
and Terry, when you were living in Newcastle, did you find it hard to understand any of the Geordie accent, or
some of it, yeah, initially, because like I was saying that in the first year of arriving in Newcastle, it was all about my studies. So, and because obviously I'm interacting more with university students, and they're from different parts of the world, in different parts of the UK.
Yeah,
so you'd have to just like one Geordie in a class, of 20. So I was not that exposed to the Geordie accent, except for the time when I walk into a shop or something like that.
Yeah.
Until when I started working, yeah. But I would find some of it difficult to understand. I would have to keep telling them to repeat themselves. Yeah.
Because I
And I
know
also didn't quite
when
like it.
people come from
Yeah.
abroad I've got a lot of when I lived in London, I had a lot of friends from outside of the UK, and I know that they said when they go to Liverpool and Newcastle that they do find it very difficult, especially my Italian friends, because
Yeah.
they were saying my Italian friends were explaining to me that in Italy there isn't a lot of English spoken TV or films, which is where a lot of people pick up accents to be able to understand. So they come across without any. The only thing they've really done is listen to music with English accents, which they've predominantly been listening to maybe London accents, and then they go to Liverpool and Newcastle, and they said to me like it was like trying to learn
Something
a new
completely
language.
different. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, definitely. I understand because for me, the one that we see most on TV, like in this part of the world, is the one, obviously the posh one, right? The London accent.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
So yeah, so I
Apart from
mean,
Biker Grove,
obviously,
unless if Biker Grove was sent around the world, that'd help the Geordies. Like that'd help. Maybe Brookside, if they just like made Brookside International and Biker Grove, then it'd be.
Yeah, but
So
have to have subtitles.
yeah, they probably. Do you know they do that, right? My American friend was telling me that. What TV show was it that they have to put English subtitles on? And I said to them, but that's not even a strong accent. I forget where it was filmed. Was it Preston or somewhere? It was northern anyway. It was a northern. I think it was Queer as Folk. That was it. You know that Queer as Folk that's based in Manchester.
That show was amazing.
Yeah, me too. It was groundbreaking. Oh my god, it was incredible. If there's anyone listening right now that's maybe perhaps a little bit younger and they haven't heard of it, there's a TV show called Queer as Folk, which is about gay men in Manchester, the gay scene in Manchester, and it was groundbreaking when it came out because there'd never been male gay sex on TV up to that point. It wasn't just groundbreaking; it was just really, really funny, really honest, really like true life. Because I lived in Manchester for I think about 5 years, 6 years, and like that was my life in Manchester. Like it was that crazy. The gay scene can be that crazy depending on how young you are and what you're into. But yeah, if you get the chance to watch it, there's an American version of it. They did a remake of it in America, but personally, I don't think they should have. I mean, it's great for the American market, I guess, but it was a very British TV show. But when they sent it around the world, because it was so popular, because like I say, at that time around the world on TV, gay sex and gay kind of culture had never really been shown that honestly before. But they had to subtitle it. and like I said, it's funny because the accent's not even that strong. It's like a Manchester accent, and the Americans were like, no, but we couldn't understand it. I was like, God.
Yeah, of course. I mean, they wouldn't. Obviously, for you, it would sound, easy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Terry, tell us about you. You're brought up in. You're from Zimbabwe, right?
Yeah.
And so what like when did you come out and stuff like that? Was it quite recently? Was it or?
I haven't come out. So I mean, I knew I've always known I was gay, but it was almost confirmed when I was 16.
Mm-hmm.
So I used to have like a crush on my grade 3 teacher, but I didn't know it was a crush, but it was just this liking that I didn't know. I just liked her so much. But now, I mean, in hindsight, it was just liking. But obviously, I mean, I'm young and there's no feelings involved there or anything like that. But it's just this fascination that is beyond normal.
Mm-hmm.
And I was tomboy just growing up. I used to play with boys. I used to do boy stuff. But then when I was 16, for some reason, I watched a film on TV that had a lesbian theme, and it had two women that were kind of falling for each other, but were straight, and they were fighting off those feelings, because obviously
And was
It
that
was
was
not
that
normal.
film from Zimbabwe? Was it a Zimbabwean film or was it?
No, obviously not Zimbabwean. We don't even now we don't make such kind of films.
Oh, really?
It was
Okay.
international film. Yeah, I think it was American or something like that.
Right.
So those scenes, because I knew I couldn't wait to watch it, I would watch it each and every episode, and I want to make sure that everyone is in bed by the time it comes out, like especially my younger sister. So just because I used to enjoy it and I'd look forward to it, and it felt so right and so natural, and especially the intimate scenes, I was like, oh yeah. So then that's when everything just fell into place. Like, okay, this is it. And I was still in boarding school at the time. So yeah, I had a fling with a friend of mine from boarding school that I was friends with from when I was in Form 1. But this happened when I was in Form 4. I was 16.
So
So there was a fling, but
is it legal or illegal in Zimbabwe to be gay?
it's illegal.
It's
It's
illegal.
illegal. It's not legal.
Wow. Okay. I
Yeah,
don't think I realised that. I knew
yeah,
certain
and
countries it was illegal, but I didn't realise Zimbabwe it was illegal.
yeah, I know it is. Yeah. I mean, they know it exists, it's there. But yeah, it's not. I mean, we have organizations that represent gay people, which is interesting that we have registered non-governmental organizations, like we have the Gays and Lesbians Association,
Wow.
to represent gay men and women. But also at the same time, it's not recognized as something that it's not even legal. I mean, it's just,
So
yeah,
is it like
it's jail.
is it like in the UK like cannabis is illegal, but it's not really frowned upon by many people. It's kind of illegal, but a lot of people use it for medicinal reasons and all kinds of reasons. So and it's frowned upon, but only in certain types of communities of society. So is it like that where it's illegal, but people are aware of it, and or is it highly frowned upon by everybody? Is it
It's
considered disgusting?
highly frowned upon by the majority of the people.
Wow.
So, I mean, there's a few open-minded people that are starting to realize that, okay, so we have these people that didn't necessarily choose to be who they are, and the least we can do is just to accept them. But it's frowned upon as something that is un-African, something that came with colonialism, something that was brought to us by the whites, or something that the Europeans are trying to impose on us. But as an African people, it's not us. So a lot of people
Oh,
just
so they see it as
it's
they see it as something that's being infiltrated by the Western, by outside, by the
definitely, yeah,
Europeans.
yeah,
Wow.
definitely. That's why you hear some leaders say, "We are not gays. Why are you imposing your values upon us?" Because, like, yeah, so they feel like, I mean, there's always been these there's always been these talks with the Europeans about lesbian and gay rights in Africa, and they don't see it as something that is pressing, because they feel there are other issues that they could prioritize rather than gay and
Right, I
lesbian
see.
rights. Yeah,
But
so
when
to
they
them
showed that
it's like,
film, so they're showing an international film that had lesbian relationship in it. So why was that allowed to be shown?
so
Did they allow certain?
yeah, so it did just, but there's one point that I did mention, is that, so here's me following each and every episode. Obviously, things are getting more and more heated. Obviously, the women that were involved in the film, that we falling in love with each other, but at the same time fighting the feelings, because to them it was unacceptable, finally got to kind of go beyond that fear and the internal fighting, to eventually want to do something. And you know what, that whole section was censored, so you
Oh,
could,
wow.
yeah,
Wow.
you could tell
Okay.
that a huge chunk of the episode, piece of,
You must have been so heart gutted about that.
oh my god, I was so
I bet you were
heartbroken.
heartbroken.
I was, because I mean, literally, I
That's
mean,
the
if
first
you
time
know
you've ever
how,
seen it. Yeah, when you're young, it's so those TV shows are so important. Those films.
Yeah, you see, I was young, and you can almost predict what's going to happen. You can almost see where it's leading to,
Yeah.
And when it got to that bit, then they censored it, and I was like, oh, well, of course they will. So yeah.
God, you must have been. It's funny, people don't talk about how, but I was talking to my friend about this yesterday, that TV and film is so, so important for kind of gay people in society being seen. And also when you watch it, especially when you're young, when you're a teenager and you're not quite sure if you are gay or not, TV and film and musicians and like seeing it on TV, seeing other people having gay kissing or whatever it is, it's just so, so, so important, because it not only does it help you as a gay teenager work out, am I definitely gay? Is this, what am I experiencing? But also it helps straight people to accept it in their minds that if they're seeing it enough, they might realise that it's not unnatural,
Yeah, obviously, yeah. I mean, it's quite a controversial issue. But I mean, as we were growing older, then we were watching South African TV via satellite, but it's not available anymore. So we used to watch South African channels, SABC 1, 2, and 3,
I remember them.
and the
Yeah, I remember them.
ETV. Yeah, and yeah, so and because South Africa was obviously more progressive in that
Yeah.
regard, they would show. So that's how I would get exposed to those kind of like films and documentaries and movies and things like that. Yeah, but obviously, I mean, it's something that is unacceptable. You know that this is who I am, and you know that it's coming out to your family or to anyone at all is a no, because it's not going to be looked at as something that is pleasant. It's ungodly, it's demonic. So it's just, you're just forced to keep it to yourself until such a time that you can say it, if you can, at any point. But otherwise, you don't want to also risk damaging relations, and it's complicated, especially since the African culture emphasizing community living. So for as much as we're individual, there's just the whole community that we have to take into consideration.
Adhere to their kind
Yeah,
of,
so you have to be careful there. Yeah. But yeah.
because just so people know, I moved to South Africa in my early 20s, I think it was, and I lived in Joburg, Cape Town, and in South Africa, they were the first country to make it legal for gay marriage, but like as in completely legal, legal. Whereas in the UK, you could get a kind of it was like a partnership agreement. It wasn't full true marriage. Now it is. Now it's legal in the UK, but back then, when I was there, South Africa was the first country to ever make. There's a whole history behind it. If you go onto Google, you research it. There's a whole reason of why it happened. Because people find that shocking. I found it quite shocking when I first moved there. That South Africa is not really, especially because of apartheid. You wouldn't think it was such a progressive country, but they were actually the first country in the world to make gay marriage completely legal and equal to straight marriage. And I actually got married out there to a woman. And when I came back to the UK, I wasn't technically married in the UK, because although I'd married her in South Africa and that was legal, when I got back to the UK, the government said, well, you're not technically married to her because it's not legal in the UK. You can get a civil partnership with her in the UK, but you have to do it separately, because back then, in whatever year it was, 2008, I think, or something like that, it wasn't legal in the UK to get married. You could just get a civil partnership. So
all related to the church, like a lot of it is, and a lot of it in the African countries, it's down to religion as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
because it's being, like Terry says, ungodly.
Yeah. So your family, Terry, sorry, go on, Sarah.
No, I was just going to say, it's interesting because the religion that they're tying this to, Christianity, well, I could argue that Christianity really emphasizes that you don't judge, you just love one another unconditionally. It's not even African religion. We have an African tradition. So it's a borrowed religion that they're using to say what you're doing there is ungodly. And yet they label the whole, homosexuality as being un-African and having been brought by colonialism. But same thing with Christianity. It's very un-African. It came with the missionaries. They're using the very thing that came with the Europeans during colonialism to fight
It's messed up.
homosexuality.
Doesn't even make sense.
Yeah, so it's just it's just complicated like that. And you can never convince an African person. Sarah knows that. When I used to interact in Newcastle with my friends, they wouldn't know that I'm gay. I mean, obviously, with her background, she would encourage that. At least you should tell them that that's what you are. But I couldn't come out to an African man because they're disgusted by it, and it's just completely unacceptable.
Well, even
So,
even in the UK.
So there's African people that are living in UK.
So
African.
But even though they live in the UK, surely they must be coming across people in the UK that are gay and that are open about it. But is it because you're from Zimbabwe? Is that their issue?
I mean, they're there. They are obviously exposed to it, but I mean, it does not necessarily mean that they how do you call it? They don't necessarily approve of it. So if they know, they accept it as something for the whites. So this is something that the whites do interested in. So if you come out as gay to an African man, especially just an African person in the UK,
I used to struggle with that, Gemma, a bit sometimes because to respect Terry's wishes, but I sometimes used to find it uncomfortable because obviously as well they seem to think it's appropriate to be quite full on with her because obviously Terry, you've obviously seen Terry, you've interacted with Terry, she's a very attractive lady, and to me
what are you saying? No, Gemma hasn't. Gemma hasn't seen me in person, but yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, but from the photos, dog ugly. No, I'm joking.
What I'm saying is they feel that they can just be like a bit full on, and as if like she'll always be interested. And I used to get frustrated because I would be like, you just want to tell them you're gay, but I can understand why she didn't. But I sometimes did struggle with that because obviously I've had struggles in different ways because like my parents like have accepted my sexuality, but my parents have always been quite my father in particular sadly is quite bigoted and has been since I was a kid, so I grew up in a very bigoted household really, and I'm surprised I'm the person I am because I obviously am the total opposite, probably because I've always strived to be. Because I knew it wasn't right, and I've always been very strict with how he behaves in front of my son. So my parents have more issues with other things, more so my dad. Like my parents would be more accepting of me being gay, but would be less accepting that I'm dating Terry because she's black. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean that's crazy, but yeah.
It is crazy. It is crazy. My parents are older. I'm not making excuses for them. But
no, I know. There's nothing you can do about it. Yeah.
That's the crazy thing about life, isn't it? That these people see it as being, that.
Well, that's a large part to do with the generation they're from and the place of where the city.
But it's also like with Terry and being at home and not being able to be out. It's a big cultural thing, isn't it? And it's because I've seen it a lot. Because I've what I watch and what I'm interested in, I've come to realise more and more that it's a lot harder for people who aren't white to actually come out about their sexuality. I've actually the more I watch and read.
Yeah, I've got a lot of friends who are Indian. And it's my African friends and my Indian friends. It's really difficult because, like you say, it's illegal. So.
But even in this country, it's not as easy for them to come out to their families, and it is around culture.
But that's usually tied in with religion as well, It
is, and it's.
I mean, I had friends growing up in Leeds that were Sikh and Muslim and things, and they weren't even gay, but they found it difficult because especially their fathers. Their fathers really wanted them to be ingrained in their roots and their culture, but they're British, so their parents would have been from, Pakistan, India, and places like that. And the problem was that their children, yes, they were Indian, but they were British, So they were always getting in trouble because they wanted to cut their hair, for example. They wanted to dress and do things that a British kid would do in the 80s and 90s, and they were constantly having difficulties with it's a bit like the film East is East. It's that cultural thing of your parents may have been immigrants, but you're British born, and then you're trying to fit into a culture where you feel naturally like you're just a British kid, but actually your parents want you to kind of like hawk back to the country they're from and follow, and they tie that in a lot with religion. The parents would often say to them, well, you have to do this because you're Sikh and you're Muslim. And they were always getting, grounded, like getting into trouble with their parents because they wanted to be more Western. And I felt sorry for them. God knows what it must be like if you're gay as well. Oh my God.
I know. Yeah, it's interesting. It's hard. I think it all goes down to boils down to people trying to preserve their culture, which is not such a bad thing, because personally I think that what makes the world go round is diversity and acceptance of each other, but without us having to let go of our cultures and traditions. So because I think I don't know. I just have a feeling that it's important that we preserve it. It's there for a reason. It's linked to, literally. I've read papers where authors, scientific authors, would link cultural diversity to biodiversity, because I'm wary of us becoming a homogeneous entity where we pretty much live the same kind of life, and I feel like it's dangerous for the earth, but that's a talk for another time. It's just, I understand where they're coming from, especially people of the elderly generation, trying to keep their children grounded and say, for as much as you're exposed to the Western culture and lifestyle, there's that part of you as well that you can't let go, that needs to be preserved. So,
I totally agree, but the issue is not. The issue isn't diversity. The issue is the harmony of those cultures living side by side, and that's where you get racists and you get people who, like for example, I was having a conversation with somebody a few months ago, and they were. Yeah. I never thought of them as a racist, right? I didn't, but they said, "Oh, in London, there's an area you go to now where they don't speak English in the schools," and they were angry about it. And I said, well, why is that? Why is that a problem? And then we had this big kind of debate argument about it, because I was really upset that they would find that, annoying. And that's the issue, is that I totally agree. I think cultures and our background and our history and our diversity is fantastic too. You should always try and embrace that and remember it. But the problem is whether we can do that in a peaceful and harmonious way. Within our own countries, and that's where we seem to be getting the especially, like, for example, I spent a lot of time in Bradford growing up, and Bradford is one of my favourite cities, but the riots that go on in Bradford are bad, and they still go on to this day, and the riots form from pretty much all the police officers are white, and most of the community in Bradford, not most, but a large majority of the community in Bradford is Indian, and so the riots happen because the white policemen are just kind of, I mean, I hate to say it, but generally they're quite racist, and so these riots happen every year between the Indian communities and the police, and it's really sad and it's awful, and you just think, and when you actually live in Bradford, when you actually spend time there, you can't imagine there being a riot, because all the people that I know in Bradford that are from who are the ethnicity of Indian are so peaceful, beautiful, friendly. They're so welcoming. They're really, they're not unwelcoming. They don't make it, like, you feel totally part of the community. Even though I'm white, I never felt like I was treated like a friend, like a neighbour, you know. So it's like, well, why on earth is there riots? You know, it's awful.
Yeah, definitely. No.
So
It's been
Terry, are you have you had a girlfriend in? I'm fascinated to know, like, because obviously although this podcast is worldwide, most of the followers are from the UK because I'm from the UK, and most of the guests are from the UK. So I'm interested to know, like, in Zimbabwe, have you had a long-term girlfriend over there? And if you did you have to keep it secret? You know, does your like, how does it work how's it worked over the years? Like,
yeah. So when I finished uni, I wasn't out. I literally would pretend to be straight. I mean, I had male. Hello,
can you hear us? Can you hear me, Teresa?
hello.
Can you hear us?
Yeah, but yeah, I can hear you.
Cool.
Yeah.
Good.
So I got cut off. I'm sorry about that.
It's all right. Technical difficulties.
Yeah, it's a technical glitch.
You know what it was? It was the African government hearing us talking about gay things, and they were like, "Shut her down."
For a second,
They're
that's what I
listening.
thought.
They're listening in.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Like, oh, what's going on here? But I was just saying, yeah, like.
Did you really think that? You didn't really think that, did you?
What's that?
Did you really think that, or are you just winding me up?
I did really think that.
Oh, really? Fucking hell, that's Jesus Christ, that's scary.
Yeah. Okay. So, where was it? Shall I continue with from where I? Yeah. So I was just saying that I the whole university period when I was doing my undergraduate, I did not come out. I did not even give an idea that I was gay. Everyone just assumed I was straight.
What university are you talking about? At uni?
Yeah, my undergrad. Yeah, at uni. Yeah, here in Zimbabwe.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, I would have people, men hitting on me, showing interest and everything, but I wouldn't accept, and they would wonder why. But I was just completely not interested in them. And then when I finished uni, so they came to a point where, you know, obviously I'm gay, and I'm in an age where, like, you have needs. You know what I mean? Like, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
And
that TV show had ended, and you had needs, and
yeah. So, like, just in there's this feeling that I know I just need to find. There has to be people like me out there. It's not talked about that much in the household. It's never talked about, but we know that those things exist. But when they're talked about, it's not in a good space or in good light. It's always, these things are bad, and this person is doing this, so it always has a negative. Like,
what, even within your own family?
On it. Yes, within my own family. I mean, my mom literally thinks that it's a demon, and you can get prayed for and get healed or cured of it. And
your mum thinks that now. That's what she thinks.
It's what she thought a couple of years ago.
Wow.
I'm sure that's the same position she holds now.
Yeah. I guess is that common? Is that, you know, that's not she's not like a rare oddity. It's quite common. Is it that is that taught through the community and through religion? Is that quite a common thing?
It's because of religion is very common. Mm-hmm. So that's, it's very common. It's not unusual.
They think it's like a demonic thing that could be cured. That's quite common.
Definitely, like you can get prayed for. It's like
are they teaching that in the churches as well? Are they? Do you think? Or
some preachers do. I mean, there's so many different types of churches. So some preachers do say that your lesbianism demon can be cast out, and you have people actually giving testimonies that I used to be lesbian. I was once possessed by the demon of lesbianism. and I was prayed for, and I'm cured, and I'm okay now. And judging from the comments and what people say about it, then you can really see what the larger community's perception is when it comes to those issues. Because people are like, yeah, of course, thank God you were lost, you're now saved, and it's demonic, and so just judging from that, it's not something that you can just say out. You just have to be careful who you tell, so you don't come out. But you have obviously people that are close to your circle of friends that know about you, that are more accepting of it. And obviously you have to see what kind of person you're engaging with before you can come out. If you can tell that this is something that's totally unacceptable to them, then it's a no-go area with that specific
And
person.
can I ask, are you finding that not finding, is it do the younger generation, are they, do you think that they're more accepting of the younger generation that's coming up now in Zimbabwe? Are they more accepting of LGBT than, say, the older, or is it the same?
No, it's not the same. Obviously, the younger generations it's more accepting, but not all of them as well. Because of the role that Christianity as a religion plays in the lives of people. There's a lot of influence that comes from the religious side. So even obviously young people that are Christian or that are very much involved in it are not very as open to it as those that are not. So I mean, it's probably 50-50.
It's censored on TV and radio, right? The gay stuff is censored even now.
It's never talked about, and even in conversation, in dialogue, or anything like that on official television channels or the radio. And then films-wise, obviously, they don't show anything gay or lesbian. The times you'd hear you talked about, our president, the former president, was well known for saying explicitly that you would equate gay people to pigs. That's how disgusting they are. You would say to the Western countries that we are not gays, it's not African, don't impose your values on us. I mean, he's not the only African president that thinks in that way.
Yeah.
So we have death sentences in some countries for just being gay. So it's something that is totally unacceptable. You have to be careful of.
Yeah. When I lived in South Africa, there was a lesbian that was killed in, I forget which country. It wasn't South Africa, but it was. I don't think it was Zimbabwe actually, but it was a neighbouring country. I think it could have been Zimbabwe. But yeah, she was killed for being a lesbian.
Even in South Africa, after it had been legalized, because the general community.
But just by chance, it wasn't. It was a. It could have been Zimbabwe or it was a neighbouring country, but yeah, she was killed for being lesbian by straight men, and we did a protest march. But even the protest march in South Africa was fraught with, you can imagine, because there's a lot of Christians in South Africa. So, yeah, it was really sad. It was scary, it was awful.
Yeah, definitely scary. So all of the relationships obviously were kind of underground, but are known by a few friends, so you're just doing your thing. You can't be affectionate with each other in public. You just have to be careful. Although some people can tell when you're walking down the street that something there, but I mean, for as long as they can't prove it, then you're okay.
You've had relationships in Zimbabwe with women, but you've just kept it private.
Yeah, very private, but all only known by close friends, obviously, and within the gay community, just people that you hang out with, they would know. But it's something that you can't afford to just say out. Family may notice something, and they may be suspicious or sit you down and question you, what's going on. But you can't say it. You can't come out and say it. It's completely unacceptable. So
God, I just can't even imagine. I can't even imagine it. Is there any underground? Is there any? I presume there's no clubs or bars that are gay. Is there any places that gay people go to congregate to in Zimbabwe? Maybe underground or maybe secret or.
Not that I'm aware of. I know that the places that are gay friendly. There's a place where we used to hang out. Where I used to do spoken word, so we used to do our performance there. That place, because I mean it's full of artists, young artists.
Mm-hmm.
They are more open-minded, and obviously, it was more open to gay people and very much gay friendly. You could be gay, you could do whatever you could. Yeah, that's those are the only places where you could. And then we have I mean just a few other places where that are gay friendly, not strictly gay bars or.
Yeah.
I'm not aware of those.
But
I mean,
gay people can go there and they can semi kind of talk about things, I guess, more openly.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, besides that, Lesbian and Gay Association, Zimbabwe Girls, Gay and Lesbian Association of Zimbabwe, where they do workshops, they do events, they organize events for gay people at their center, just for security, obviously. So they have things going on. They have beauty contests going on. They have artists coming in to perform for gay people. So it's quite closed because you can't afford to go around doing such things just willy-nilly. But yeah, you have those organized by that association where, it's just a friendly place for gay people because they understand the struggles that come with being gay, like socially, and politically. So they just there to support gay people in the community. So yeah.
And what would happen if you were found? You say it's obviously it's illegal, but what are the punishments if you are found to be? Like do you go to jail, or is it a fine, or?
You may actually go to jail.
For how long?
Because thing is, people can only suspect you're gay. And that's why I'm kind of I'm a bit how do you call this? I mean, obviously about the podcast and knowing its reach and everything. But I mean, for as far as I know, people can only suspect, but you can't come out. But if a person suspects, you have to catch me in the act to prove that I'm gay, if you know what I mean. So you can't say because of the way I dress or how I do things, or you see me with this specific person all the time or anything like that. But because you haven't proven or you haven't seen me in the act, then you can't prove that I'm gay. So it's hard to pin it down on anyone, even when they are, because you don't have that proof, if you know what I mean. So though it's illegal, it's kind of makes it a bit difficult to enforce in that regard, because obviously you have to catch me in the act to prove that I am. Then obviously if you're caught in the act, then you may have to face.
All right, so it's not like it's not kind of like a witch hunt thing where somebody could just point to someone and say, I think they're gay, and they get hauled into the courts. They actually have to have proof of, I guess, copulation or something.
I think so, yeah, because it's difficult. I mean, not in this country. In some countries they do that, but not this country. We don't have that, which is okay. At the moment, it's not something that would consider important. We have other pressing issues to focus on rather than gay rights. It's not something that it's far from what we, because there are other issues that we can deal with that are more urgent. It's interesting. I mean, I feel you are lucky.
Oh God, I was going to say when you came to the UK, it must have been like a huge weight off your shoulders to, you know what I mean, like to be able to just go and meet a woman. And
I know. I mean, I could feel I could feel more comfortable because obviously, Sarah, you think people can tell when we are walking together, right?
I don't know really, because we don't, because you still aren't fully comfortable even when you're here, and obviously I respect that.
Yeah.
And also
I mean, like when we're walking generally, do you think people can kind of tell that we are a couple?
Not really.
Oh no.
because we're not
No.
we don't show affection in public or
So you
hold hands.
you don't hold hands.
Terry won't
No,
do that in
no,
public, and
no, it's, it's
like
because
the
you
other thing,
it just
the other
yeah.
thing that we've experienced is obviously we're biracial as well, Gemma, and there's still in this country, sadly, and obviously with what's happened recently, it's highlighted that some people still have a bit of a problem with that.
What's so great? Because I find this. I'm fascinated by this. I'm fascinated by the subject because.
I've noticed, or I don't know if it's that. I think it's a combination of when people have maybe seen it's, and also sorry, that's my dog. I really apologise.
Alright.
You
Don't
were
worry,
outside.
it's cool.
I think also we look very different, not just from colour, but I'm really small and Terry's really tall, so we do look a bit like the odd couple anyway, because like there's a significant difference in our height, and so we have had like looks and things, but
But like, can I ask you? So I'm fascinated by the subject because